The day I announced our baby's gender with a small backyard party, my neighbor blared sirens from a speaker system and called in a fake noise complaint. The police came and discovered she was the one violating sound ordinances. Watching her get cited live on Facebook while my friends filmed her meltdown, screaming, "It's not fair!" became the most viewed video in town history. I live with my wife, Jess, in Bloomington, Indiana. It's a quiet place. Streets lined with old oaks, kids riding bikes, people mowing their lawns every Saturday like clockwork. It's not fancy, but it's home. Jess and I have been through hell the past few years. We tried for a baby forever. Tests. Medications. Surgeries. 2 miscarriages. It almost broke us. So when Jess finally got pregnant, it felt like breathing again after drowning. We decided early on, when we found out the gender, we would have a small party. Nothing crazy. Just family, a few friends, backyard barbecue. But life had other plans. Or more specifically, Gina did. Gina lived right next door. Single. Angry. Always had a chip on her shoulder. She hated kids. She hated dogs. She hated when someone parked too close to her house, even though it's public street. She once left a note on our windshield that said, "Learn to park, idiot," because Jess's bumper was hanging 6 inches over the curb line. She's the kind of person who would yell at the mailman for walking across her grass. We kept things polite. Fake smiles. Quick nods. No real conversations. Still, I had a bad feeling when we started setting up for the gender reveal. Jess spent the whole morning hanging up pink and blue streamers. I set up the folding tables and grilled burgers. We had a Bluetooth speaker playing soft country music, not even that loud. Family and friends started arriving around 2 p.m. It was a mix of young kids, older folks, just good people. People were laughing, eating, playing cornhole in the backyard. Jess looked so happy. That's when I saw Gina come out onto her porch. She stood there, hands on her hips, watching us. I waved. She didn't wave back. I shrugged it off. Figured maybe she'd just grumble to herself and move on. Boy, was I wrong. About 15 minutes later, the nightmare started. First, it was a low rumble. Then it got louder. And louder. Suddenly, full-blast sirens started shrieking from Gina's yard. Not music. Not fireworks. Emergency sirens. Like police and ambulance sirens turned all the way up. It was so loud that drinks on the tables were rippling like that scene from Jurassic Park. Everyone froze. The kids covered their ears. One little boy actually started crying. Jess jumped and dropped the pink and blue cupcake she was holding. I could see the stress in her face. 6 months pregnant, and rattled to her core. I stormed over to the property line and yelled, "Gina, could you please turn it down? We're just having a small party." She sneered and shouted back, "You people are disturbing the peace. This is a quiet neighborhood." I tried to stay calm. I really did. I said, "We're not disturbing anything. We're just celebrating our baby." She screamed, "Not my problem!" And then, to add insult to injury, the cops showed up. 2 squad cars, lights flashing. Everyone fell silent. People started whispering. Jess grabbed my hand, squeezing it hard. The officer walked up to me. "Sir, we received a noise complaint from this address," he said. I almost laughed. I pointed at our tiny speaker playing country music so soft you could barely hear it over the sirens. I said, "Officer, with all due respect, do you hear that?" Just then, another burst of sirens shrieked from Gina's speakers. The cop winced, covering his radio. The second officer walked to his cruiser and came back with a decibel meter. He measured the noise. After a few seconds, he shook his head and said to the first officer, "It's not them. It's coming from next door." The first officer turned to me and said, "Mind if we check your setup real quick?" I said, "Be my guest." They walked around. Checked our little speaker. Walked through the yard. The whole time, Gina stood on her porch, arms crossed, staring daggers at us. Finally, the officer walked back to me. "You're fine, sir. Actually, you're way under the town's noise ordinance limit. But your neighbor." He trailed off, shaking his head. They marched over to Gina's porch. "This is where it got good." One of my friends, Eric, whispered, "Bro, I'm live streaming this. Facebook Live." I said, "Good. Let everyone see." The cops told Gina to shut it down immediately. Gina exploded. "I'm being harassed," she screamed. "I'm the victim," she shrieked. "I'm calling my lawyer," she howled. The cops stayed calm. They told her she was breaking the town noise laws and had to shut it down. When she refused, they wrote her a citation on the spot. $500 fine. Right there in front of everyone. Eric caught the whole meltdown on Facebook Live. The best part? Gina, red-faced and shrieking, yelled, "It's not fair!" over and over again, sounding like a toddler throwing a tantrum. The live stream took off. Within 2 hours, it had 12,000 views. By the next morning, it had 45,000 plus views. People from all over town were commenting. Things like, "Classic Gina behavior. She called the cops and got herself fined. Karma. Never seen justice served so fast." Jess and I finished the party after the cops left. We cut the cake. Pink inside. We're having a girl. We cried happy tears. Surrounded by people who loved us. Meanwhile, Gina was pacing back and forth on her porch, yelling into her phone. Screaming about lawsuits and discrimination and harassment. She filed a formal complaint against the police. It got dismissed immediately. Then she tried to sue us for emotional distress. Her case got laughed out of court. And the kicker? She put her house up for sale 3 weeks later. Still sitting there. Still empty. Nobody wants to buy a house next to someone like that. For a few days after the party, it was quiet. Jess and I thought maybe, just maybe, Gina had learned her lesson. But of course she hadn't. One morning, about a week later, I walked out to find nails scattered all across our driveway. Not just a few, handfuls of rusty roofing nails, right where our car tires would hit them. Luckily, I saw them before Jess could drive over them. I spent an hour picking them up with a magnet wand. I didn't have proof it was her. No cameras yet. So I couldn't do anything except file a report with the police. The next day, it got worse. Our trash cans were knocked over. The flowers Jess had planted out front were pulled out of the dirt and thrown into the street. Jess broke down crying when she saw it. This was supposed to be a joyful time. Instead, it felt like we were living in a war zone. That night, I installed 2 security cameras. One pointed at the driveway, one pointed at the front yard. I didn't even try to hide them. I wanted her to know we were watching now. 2 days later, we caught her. Clear as day in the video. Gina, creeping across our front lawn at 11:30 p.m., yanking the "It's a girl" sign Jess had put out, and smashing it on the ground. We sent the footage to the cops. They didn't mess around. The same officer from the gender reveal showed up at Gina's door the next morning. Word spread fast again, thanks to Eric posting clips from the security cam on Facebook. Gina was charged with criminal mischief. Another court date. Another public humiliation. At her hearing, Gina tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding. That she tripped and accidentally knocked over the sign. The judge wasn't buying it. She got slapped with community service and another fine. By now, people in the neighborhood were sick of her too. The HOA started getting involved. Turns out, Gina had racked up dozens of small violations over the years: untrimmed grass, illegal fencing, failing to maintain her property. They hit her with multiple HOA fines all at once. Between the city tickets, the HOA penalties, and her lawsuit costs, she was drowning. And then came the final blow. Someone, not us, tipped off the city inspection office. They found out Gina's backyard had illegal wiring, from when she hooked up those massive speakers. It was a major code violation. Big enough that the city told her she had to fix it immediately, or else they'd fine her another $2,000 and start proceedings to condemn part of her property. I found out later that she had sunk most of her savings into her divorce a few years back. She couldn't afford the repairs. She couldn't sell the house either, not with active violations on record. She was stuck. Trapped by her own bitterness. Meanwhile, Jess and I moved on. We kept preparing for the baby. People dropped by more often, bringing gifts and home-cooked meals. Our little girl, Hannah, was born healthy 3 months later. The best day of my life. As for Gina? Well, she wasn't done yet. About 2 weeks after we brought Hannah home, we woke up one night to a strange smell. Burnt plastic. Something sharp and chemical. I ran outside, half asleep, heart racing, and found a small fire smoldering at the edge of our fence. It looked like someone had set one of our old yard signs on fire and shoved it against the wood. Thankfully, it hadn't spread far. I put it out with the garden hose before it could do real damage. But that was it. That crossed the line. We called the fire department. They called the police. They treated it like arson, even though it didn't get classified as a full felony because the fire didn't cause enough damage. Still, it meant one thing: Gina was facing real criminal charges now. The investigation wasn't fast. It took weeks. But the security cameras caught enough shadows, a figure matching Gina's size and clothes creeping near our yard that night. It wasn't bulletproof, but it was enough to get her arrested for reckless endangerment. This time, the story didn't just stay local. The local newspaper picked it up. Headline: Neighborhood feud leads to arrest after backyard fire. The article didn't name her directly at first. But when she had to show up for court, her name was public record. Everyone knew. Gina's name became a joke around town. People made memes. One of them was a fake real estate ad. House for sale. Comes with free drama and nightly siren concerts. Even local businesses started using it for jokes. A bar down the street had a drink special. The Gina, so bitter you'll call the cops on yourself. I won't lie. Part of me felt bad. But a bigger part of me felt like it was karma finally cashing in. After the arrest, things got quiet again. Real quiet. Jess and I tried to enjoy the peace. We took walks with the baby stroller. Sat on the porch in the evenings. Gina's house sat dark most nights. No music. No lights. No car in the driveway. Rumor around the neighborhood was that she had moved in with her sister across town while she figured out her legal mess. We thought it was over. We were wrong. About a month later, just when we finally let our guard down, Jess noticed something weird. Our mailbox was wide open, even though she knew she had closed it after getting the mail. At first, we thought maybe the wind blew it open. But then it kept happening. Every day for a week. Sometimes the mail was missing. Sometimes it was ripped open. We contacted the post office. Filed a report. The mail carrier told us he noticed someone watching from across the street. A beat-up blue car parked a few houses down that didn't belong to anyone around here. That night, I checked our security cameras again. Sure enough, around 3 a.m., someone in a dark hoodie came creeping up to our mailbox. Couldn't see the face. But the build? The walk? It looked awfully familiar. I handed the footage over to the police. Turns out, tampering with mail is a federal crime. Way more serious than the local charges Gina had been dealing with. The police started looking harder. They ran the plates on the blue car. It was registered to Gina's sister. Busted. Within a few days, they had enough to get a warrant. They raided Gina's sister's place. Found piles of stolen mail, not just ours. Half the block's mail was sitting in her garage. Birthday cards. Bank statements. Utility bills. Even some packages that had been reported missing. It wasn't just petty revenge anymore. It was serious theft and mail fraud. Federal agents got involved. The next time Gina showed up in court, she wasn't just facing misdemeanor fines anymore. She was facing felony charges. Real prison time. The look on her face when they cuffed her, pure disbelief. Like she couldn't understand how her own hate had swallowed her whole. Eric was at the courthouse that day, of course. He got a blurry photo of her being led away. Posted it with the caption, "Play stupid games, win federal charges." The post went viral again. At this point, Gina wasn't just a local joke, she was a cautionary tale. Parents told their teenagers, "Don't end up like Gina." Small businesses used her story in ads. Church signs even started popping up. "Love thy neighbor, don't be a Gina." After Gina's arrest for mail theft, the neighborhood felt lighter. It's hard to explain. It was like a weight had been lifted off everyone's shoulders. No more nasty looks. No more sirens. No more late-night nonsense. Just peace. Jess and I finally started to breathe again. We had Hannah's first checkup. Family came to visit without being worried about crazy next door. Life started feeling normal. But there was one last loose end, Gina's house. Since she was now stuck in court cases, both criminal and civil, she couldn't sell it. But she couldn't afford the property taxes anymore either. Word got out that the city had placed a lien on her home for unpaid fines. Eventually, the bank foreclosed on it. A big ugly notice went up on the front door. Foreclosed. Property under bank control. It sat abandoned for a while. The lawn grew wild. Windows started cracking. Neighborhood kids dared each other to run up and touch the porch. Then one day, a work crew showed up. They boarded up the windows. Posted more signs. Turns out, the bank was going to auction it off. I didn't think much about it, until I heard who bought it. Eric. Yep, that Eric. My buddy who had live-streamed the first meltdown. He and his girlfriend had been looking to buy their first home. The auction price? Dirt cheap, because nobody wanted a place with that kind of reputation. Eric called me that night. "Man," he said, laughing, "imagine Gina finding out she got replaced by the dude who made her famous." I told him he better bless the place with holy water before moving in. We joked about it, but deep down, it felt like real justice. Eric moved in about a month later. He painted over Gina's faded gray walls. Planted sunflowers in the front yard. Put up a big wooden swing set in the back for his nieces and nephews. Every change he made felt like erasing a scar. For a while, it seemed like the story was finally over. But then, one random afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It said, "This isn't over." Jess found me standing on the porch, just staring at it. She took the letter from me, read it, and said calm as anything, "Let them rot." We called the police again, filed a report. There wasn't much they could do without proof it was Gina, but come on. Who else would it be? Nothing ever came of it. No more letters. No more sightings. Maybe it was her last gasp. The final pathetic swipe before reality swallowed her whole. Months passed. Life finally settled into something close to normal. Hannah started crawling. Jess and I spent late nights watching her on the baby monitor, whispering about all the things we wanted for her future. The whole nightmare with Gina became a story we told over beers. It almost didn't feel real anymore. Then, one evening, just before sunset, Eric called me. "Bro, you need to see this," he said. He texted me a photo. It was a picture of Gina. Homeless. Sitting on a park bench downtown. Dirty backpack. Torn jacket. Hair wild and matted. Eric had seen her while grabbing dinner. At first I felt nothing. Then I felt anger. Then guilt. Then something heavier, pity. Jess and I talked about it late into the night. I kept thinking, maybe we pushed too hard. Maybe all the Facebook posts, all the jokes, all the public shaming. Maybe it was too much. Jess, who was always wiser than me, said quietly. She did this to herself. We didn't make her steal. We didn't make her set fires. We didn't make her poison her own life. She was right. Still, it haunted me. About a week later, there was a knock at the door. Late at night. I grabbed the bat I kept near the couch and opened it cautiously. It was Gina. She looked wrecked. Eyes bloodshot. Clothes hanging off her like rags. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then she rasped, "I just want to talk." Jess stood behind me, holding Hannah tight against her chest. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. Gina's hands shook as she spoke. "You ruined me," she said. "You humiliated me." I didn't say anything. She kept going. "I lost everything. My house. My job. My family." Her voice cracked. "I just wanted peace and quiet. That's all. You people." I cut her off. "You tried to ruin the happiest day of our lives," I said, keeping my voice low. "You scared my pregnant wife. You put my baby's life at risk when you set that fire." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I wasn't thinking," she whispered. I just didn't want to be forgotten." That hit me harder than anything else she could have said. Because the truth was, she was forgotten. By her husband. By her friends. By everyone. She had built her whole world around anger because it was the only thing that made her feel real. "I'm sorry," she mumbled, barely audible. I didn't say anything. Just stood there. After a few long seconds, she turned and shuffled away into the night. I never saw her again after that. Some people say she left town. Others say she drifted from shelter to shelter. I don't know. And honestly, I don't want to. Life moved on. Hannah took her first steps. Jess and I bought a bigger house on the other side of town. Eric got married in his front yard, the one that used to belong to Gina, surrounded by sunflowers. The old house? You'd never even recognize it now. Clean, bright, full of life. Sometimes I drive past it, windows down, and smile to myself. Because in the end, the revenge wasn't the citations. It wasn't the Facebook posts. It wasn't even the court dates. The real revenge was simple. We kept living. She didn't.